Good morning. My name is Drew Holley, and I'm managing partner of BIS Benefits. We are an employee benefit and business insurance brokerage located in the Alpharetta, Roswell area here in Metro Atlanta. And I'm joined by my colleague.
How you doing? Mike Woodard, Vice President of Sales and Account Management on the employee benefits side. Happy to be here.
Today we're going to talk about insurance, everyone's favorite exciting topic, but particularly agent of records, what it is, what it isn't.
Yeah, so really there's two sides of it, right? There's your risk services side and there's your benefits side. Agent of record letter is simply something that when we meet with a prospect and they are with another broker, if they want to do business with us on the benefits, we have them sign what's called an agent of record, or sometimes known as a broker of record letter. What that allows us to do is immediately gain access to their policies and be able to begin to serve them as a BIS client.
Yeah, so a lot of people that are not in the industry, I always like to equate, for some reason, people's knowledge of insurance is broken down more into understanding auto or home, because those are the more often interactions as opposed to commercial health insurance or commercial insurance or property of a building. So imagine you have a personal insurance policy, say with a State Farm agent or an Allstate, and you like the policy, you just want an agent or broker that can handle questions or claims or service questions easier, but you don't want to move carriers, in this case, Allstate or State Farm. Well, on the business-to-business side, it's no different. If you have a health insurance policy with Anthem or Aetna or United Healthcare, and you like that policy, but you want a new broker or advisor, and I can talk to you about a couple things that a broker should bring to the table, and there's lots of good brokers here in Metro Atlanta, but you are allowed at any time on the benefit side to say, you know what, I like the policy, but I want a new broker. And it's as simple as a signature. It's almost like signing a limited power of attorney and saying, look, I want my Aetna policy to stay the same, I want ID cards the same for my staff, but I really need a new broker. It's literally a signature you could do today. And at BIS, we don't make you sign a contract. So at any time we're not delivering on your service, you reserve the right to fire us by moving to another broker. Hopefully we're having a conversation about what those expectations are before we go there. But yeah, it's that simple. You own the policy as a business and you get to pick the broker or agent that serves your needs. And it's as simple as a signature that could be text to you. That's what the industry allows.
Yeah, and I think it's important for when you're talking to prospects and you're selling our core values and our vision, it's important to know that, hey, just as easy it is, what works for us can also work against us. How easy it is to be able to get a client, it's just as easy to lose it. I'm always very transparent with that, and I think that just builds a level of trust within a prospect. Hey, I'm not just here for a signature and you're going to a B team. We're going to serve you, and if we don't hold up to those standards, then it's just as easy to fire me as it is hire me.
That's right. Yeah, I think when you're coming into the insurance industry, you might be thinking the only way I can, earn business is by moving you to another insurance carrier. And that's very much what, like the personal auto home life, that's where I got my career started as an intern about 16 years ago. And you were trained to say, well, the only way I get to work with this person is I have to move the carrier. On business to business, both on the business insurance, workers' comp, liability, commercial auto, and on the benefits, that's not true. You really need to be asking yourself if your business is, who is my broker? Are they serving my needs? And on the benefit sides, it's usually about 4 or 5.
Yeah. Shout out Beth Blaylock, right?
Yeah.
No, I was just going to I would love to know what the difference, right? Because benefits, I think when you're on the employee benefits side, there's always that, from experienced brokers, it's always been just a process of get the AOR letter. What little I know about the P&C side on for you and Jesse is, why is it not looked upon the same way as in benefits? Is it different renewal dates, different policies, underwriting get involved?
Yeah. So we're going to get really wonky. So nerd alert here if you're listening to this podcast, which any podcast related to insurance is going to naturally attract that. But as someone who grew up watching Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, I think insurance was a natural transition for me.
Yeah, so, we're not beating Joe Rogan on the podcast.
No, numbers. We're not. Yeah, so what's really happened on the benefits world is we really have to be partners on the open enrollment experience. So if you're in the workforce just as an employee, not necessarily a leader in benefits, so much of what we do is about the delivery experience of open enrollment for the staff. If you're a business, the last thing you want to do is say, hey, I've got 25 employees and I'm moving from one insurance carrier to another. If you do that experience poorly, the insurance carriers, they need time. I can't just click a button and move 25 employees from one medical carrier to another. You also have to give your staff reasonable amount of time to process. They need to understand if their doctors are in network, if their drugs are covered, if their kid's pediatrician. And so doing that process, you really need to have a handle of technology. So the world has changed 16 years ago. A lot of this was done on paper and PDFs and emails. Now we have open enrollment software. We'll partner with payroll companies to deliver that experience. Sometimes people pick brokers not because they have a problem with insurance. They have a problem with the way it's delivered or communicated, how employees are enrolled or terminated. So really, I think to be a successful broker on the benefits, you almost have to have a logistics brain, not just insurance. And then on top of that, I think you have to be competent about technology.
Absolutely. Technology is so important. And it's funny because you've been in a little bit longer than I have, but it's 2012, so 12 years now. But in just a 12-year time span, it went from paper on a benefit deduction sheet that you made look all pretty with their logo on it to where kind of about halfway through that, now it became a differentiator. Here's how I can get in front of it. The marketing campaigns, everything was surrounded by technology because it was new. Now it's an expectation, right? So, yeah, it's really important to have that EQ of knowing, hey, let's look after people that are still doing it the old way. Let's train them on how to do it a new way, and it becomes more efficient, for sure.
Yeah, and I would say the population of businesses still doing it paper each year is shrinking. But I would say if you're evaluating a broker, if these are some of the questions that you may not intuitively think to ask, but you should be asking if you're a business, if you're an HR manager, is how does your benefit team, how's your broker handle open enrollment? How do they handle enrollments and terminations? Does your information sync with payroll companies? Do you work with payroll companies? And again, BIS is not the only broker in town. I always like to say that because I think I'd be weary talking to any vendor if you say that you're the only one that does something. I think sometimes that comes from a sense of insecurity or pride, whereas we're not immune. There's a lot of good brokers in town, but there's also a lot of brokers who don't know this, or they do a really good job for a company with 500 employees, but for companies under 100 employees, it can be messy. There's a lot of growth. So on the benefit side, just to go back to the premise of the original question, agent of records can be more common because we're solving a lot of those logistical problems that may not have to do with insurance. So you need someone to step in outside of moving carriers. Of course, we try to save companies money by shopping out the rates or finding innovative ways to lower. On the commercial side, it's a little bit different. Again, no one likes talking or thinking about insurance until you actually need it. With a company with, say, 40, 50 employees, there's a lot of things going on outside of your once-a-year enrollment that you could be involved in, helping employees get ID cards, prescription drugs covered at the right amount, handling the claims. If you own a building, like the building we're in today, you most likely need to have property insurance. You need to have something to cover if this place burned down, especially if you're a restaurant, because if the building burns down and you can't serve food, well, you have a disruption of your business. How are you going to make your livelihood? So those are very important to have, but hopefully there's not a fire going on once a day or happening often. So on that world, the agent interaction or broker could be heavily right at that open enrollment, but outside, if there's not a problem, you're not involving with them. But here's what's really happened in the marketplace, especially in the last 10, 15 years, both on the benefits and the business insurance, independently owned agents, which I'm one of the owners. We've got 27 staff members. Our industry, especially during the low interest rate environment, but still very much happening, private equity, family wealth, big banks are gobbling up agencies like us. And that's not necessarily a bad thing in itself unless certain things happen at the end of that, and each transaction is different. So if a big bank buys up a commercial insurance agency with 10 employees and their average sale produced, say, $10,000 in revenue for that agency, well, $10,000 revenue for a small business is a lot of money, and you're probably going to give that client more attention. But if you're a bank or a private equity owned agency that you have $1 billion in revenue, it's going to be harder to have the most talented and the most experienced staff to be put on a small business. So the case I would make to you in the small business community is if you have a property insurance or if you have commercial auto and you don't really have any problems now, great, you're blessed. Most likely something's going to happen a year from now, 5 years. Do you have confidence that your broker, advisor, and their team is going to be there to help you?
Sure.
And are they going to have the incentive to want to help you when a claim happens? Because our role is to really be the broker, the middle person between the small business and the insurance carriers
Sure.
to help the claim pay as it should, to articulate it, to keep the ball moving. Is if you're with a huge organization that has your customer contact an email to a service center and the response time is a week or 3 days or 10 days, and if you haven't filed a claim yet, what do you think the experience is going to be like when you do file a claim?
Right.
So the case of making an agent of record or switching agents but keeping your policy in the commercial would really be about when a big claim happens, you want to know that you've got your agent's cell phone number.
Right.
Does that make sense?
And knowing that, thinking out loud, but just also reviewing policies, right? Is it something that renews every year and that value doesn't change of the building, right? Or, hey, we want to review these. Does that play in part of that conversation?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, we're advisors. We're a little bit more than, hey, I just need you to send my policy. Whatever you have now is apples to apples, click. I think obviously you want to start with what they have now and not make the coverage less. Yeah. But yeah, typically annually a commercial insurance agent is going to evaluate it. Maybe you added a new building, new equipment that you didn't think in that moment, I bought new equipment, I need to tell my agent. You're a busy business leader or owner, so typically annually you want to review it. That doesn't necessarily mean you want to move policies. So what's different on the commercial insurance side, if you're a small business, especially if business is well, you're growing, things are happening, and if you get, say, a 5-10% increase, that increase is only hypothetically affecting you as a company, not the rest of the staff, whereas on the benefits, it's affecting their paycheck if you ignore it, and that's a big deal. So on the commercial, business owners, leaders tend to, let's just say, allow an increase more easily. My argument would be you really need to know who your broker or agent is on the benefit, on the commercial side, so when something does happen, you want to feel confident that you've got a team to back it up. So agent of records on that side need to happen, not necessarily moving you carriers. A little different on the commercial insurance side. Certain agencies or brokers may not have access to all 1,000 carriers, whereas on the health insurance side, there's much less carriers. Whereas on the risk services side and commercial insurance, which are interchangeable words, there can be thousands of carriers, so no one carrier, for the most part, has access to all of them.
Now, so it sounds to me resistance to change, and maybe a reason why maybe AOR letters, historically, it's not talked about on that side. I guess the resistance to change is going to be, you know what, I haven't had a claim on this building in 5 years.
Right.
I maybe got a 2% rate increase.
Yeah.
Or that building's not walking to the pharmacy and getting prescribed a specialty drug or having a big surgery. So I can see the resistance of, I haven't looked at it in 10 years, or we're just going to keep our same broker because it's not like health. You don't get those high increases.
Yeah. I think what we would make the case, if your broker's not your brother-in-law, your second cousin, your former roommate, you don't know them 10 plus years, then whether it's the benefits or the commercial, you need to have confidence that they're there to help you when you need it. More often than not, there's a lot of, let's call, idle policies on the commercial side because the claims aren't happening as often. My case to you would say, understand who your broker agent is, and if you don't, you may just need to make a simple change of who your broker is, which is just a signature. Doesn't change the policies, rates. You don't get an invoice. The way we get compensated is you pay the carrier, and that has a small fee built into the broker. So you reserve the right to choose what agent or broker at any time without changing the carriers. So that's usually an education to businesses, whether it's the benefits side or the commercial. But I think on our side, BIS has been doing the benefits since 1997, the commercial the last 3 years. I think what we bring to the table is, hey, look, we're looking for solutions, And we don't want to cause unnecessary disruption. The
Sure.
simple solution for you might be change your agent or broker, don't change your policy.
Sure.
And so that's a brief history for the audience of what an agent record is.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was going to say just the efficiency part too, just one more thing on the commercial, because I'm thinking opportunities of how our benefits side can help the commercial, right? It's probably a good idea to make, the reason why we're making that push on the benefit side to introduce to commercial side is now you have all your policies under one roof. You've seen what we can do on the benefit side. Now here's what the service we can bring on the commercial side.
Yeah, and I would just say, look, not having the correct doctor claim, $50 bill or $100 bill on the health side, that's very important. $50 is a big deal to an individual. But if a company's building burns down, that is a big shockwave. So I say the claims can kind of have a bigger impact when they do happen on the commercial, whereas on the benefits, there's kind of always a trickle effect. I would just make the case that you work too hard for your business to not know if something happens 1 year from now, 5 years from now on the commercial. You need to know that you have the confidence, you have a team that cares and want to, and not a service center. And we see that a lot more on the commercial side. So yeah, I mean, it's your policy. What agent or broker is advocating for you? That should be the question, not I need an agent broker just to shop it out. Yeah, part of the role should be shopping it out, but we try to make the case that, look, if your need is not me moving you carrier, then I'm going to tell you that, because we live by the golden rule of just do unto others as you would have them do to you. So I think that's just good business practice, and I think that's how we approach when someone asks us to look at a policy. We want to say, well, who's your agent or broker? What are they doing or not doing? And the solution could just be agent of record, don't move carriers.
Got it. Harrison be killing us right now, hammering that squirrel butt.
Yeah, that's right.